Loud. Boom. Here we are with Ben Azadi. Welcome to Trevolution podcast number 1, my man.
Dude, I'm grateful that I'm the first guest on this amazing show that I know is just going to take off. So thank you for having me, Trevor.
Cool, man. Thank you. You actually had a integral role in propelling me to take action and do this right away. I've thought about it, wanted to do it. I think a lot of people, think about making content and thinking about making videos, thinking about doing a podcast. But when we were having lunch with both you and Nick, who runs the A Game podcast, you guys were like, I love that name. It's awesome. Why don't you do it? And here we are.
You took action, dude, and that's what separates the winners from the losers or just the thinkers. So I'm excited. That's awesome, man. Way to go.
Yeah. So I got a couple different directions I'd like to go today. Number one, obviously, you got Keto Camp in the back. I'd like to hear about what you're doing with the Keto Camp. I really want to dive in a little more on keto, really kind of focus on that, because I feel like a lot of people, obviously, it's really popular. It's trending. Like, I'll watch one keto video and all these other ones start coming up. So there's a lot out there. But I really want to kind of break it down for not straight beginners, but people who have maybe tried it a little bit. They know a little bit about it. They've done it. Maybe they fell off the wagon, because that's me. So real quick, like maybe 2 months ago, I decided I'm going to try keto. And instead of, I kind of just went low carb. I got like a bunch of keto meals, mostly meat and vegetables, tried to go high in the good fats. I know that's the role to go. I do kind of some bulletproof coffee stuff in the morning, but I probably did that for 2-3 weeks. I felt good. I started feeling some good energy. And then just like out of the blue, and I don't know if it's because I maybe missed some good sleep a few days in a row, but I just lost my willpower and just went nuts eating, fast food, carbs, and just kind of fell off the wagon. And then I've got another friend who did it for about a month, and he lost 20 pounds, felt great, loved it. But then just kind of being around other family members, friends, going out to eat, people cooking and just kind of eating what's there, getting lazy with it, he completely stopped too. Now, he did say he kept the weight off, which is great for him. But it seems to be a common thing. Like, people start, they try to do it, but they just don't get over that hump. So I wondered if you could help people who know a little bit about it. They've tried it. What's the right way to get started in this? What do we eat? What's a day look like? How do we get there? How do we know we're there? I know that's a lot in one, but what would you say to kind of get that conversation going?
Yeah, I would say there's no cookie cutter approach to keto, and you got to really determine what your goals are and why those are your goals. So if you first get really clear on your why,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and a lot of people, I ask them, what is your why? And they'll say, oh, I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to lose 50 pounds. So I want weight loss. Okay, why is that important to you? So then you want to dig a little deeper. Oh, because right now my confidence is not there because I have this big belly. Oh, why is that important? Why is the confidence important? Oh, because I want to make more phone calls for my business. I want to be in front of people. I want to present. I want to do Facebook Lives, and I don't have the confidence. Why is it important to do Facebook Lives? Oh, because I'm going to grow my brand. So if you just dig a little deeper to your why and you're clear on your why, I would start there first and foremost. Then, depending on where you are to where you want to get to determines on how fast you want to go into keto, or if you should gradually get into ketosis, and then how long you should stay in there. So if it's somebody who's insulin resistant, they have 50 pounds or more to lose, and they've been a sugar burner their entire life. So let me clarify what that means. That means they've taught their cells and their body to burn sugar, glucose, as their primary fuel source. Then you want to gradually start to decrease your carbohydrates every day as you increase your healthy fats. As you do that, you're going to shift into ketosis. And the approach that I teach it's about 21 days to kind of get into ketosis. And to answer your question, how do you know you're in ketosis? There's 3 ways to test. Actually, there's 4 ways. You could just go by how you feel. If you feel like you have mental clarity, the weight's coming off, that's probably a good sign you're in ketosis. But to verify it, you could test with your urine. You could test with your breath. Those two are not my favorite because they're not as accurate as the gold standard, which is blood. So you could just buy a machine like the Keto Mojo machine on Amazon and test your blood ketones and your blood glucose. And if you hit 0.5 or higher in blood ketones, you're technically in ketosis. And what does that mean? That means you're no longer relying on sugar, and you're teaching your body to burn through your sugar reserves, and now your liver is producing ketones to fuel the brain, which it needs a fuel source, right? And it actually fuels the brain 3 times more than glucose. So that's a way to verify it. So you want to gradually decrease the carbs, increase the healthy fat, and also something that's very important is electrolytes. A lot of the time, people don't understand this, and they go right into ketosis, and they're not strategically replacing their electrolytes. And the reason that this is a mistake is because when you burn through your sugar reserves and you have about 2,000 calories, and as you transition into ketosis, you're going to burn down your sugar reserves, which is a good thing. You want to do that. You're also going to lose a lot of water weight, and a lot of electrolytes with it. And that's not a good thing. So you want to make sure every single morning you have, and if you're watching the video, you have some high quality salt. Like I have my sea salt here. I put it in my water. I put it in my coffee. I am putting it on my hand and licking it. I'm replenishing my electrolytes all day long, because when you're in ketosis, you're just naturally dumping a lot of electrolytes. So what happens if you're not strategically doing this? You're going to have maybe brain fog. You might get the keto flu, which you probably heard about. You're not going to feel good. So this is an easy way to make sure you're getting all the benefits of keto and you feel good at the same time. I want to make sure that I answer all your questions there.
Yeah. I mean, we're really getting into it.
Yeah.
So I have a little experience with the salt stuff, just randomly. And I'm trying to remember if this was around the time I started the keto, but I started getting like a little Charlie horse cramp in my calf. And it was like every night for a couple weeks. And I told a massage therapist about it, and she told me the trick about putting the salt in the water. And what's crazy, it literally stopped. Like, yeah, it was the issue. So I think that's probably the same thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. You were low in probably your magnesium and other electrolytes, so that just instantly did the trick. Yeah, totally. I love that tip.
Okay, so you were saying gradually decrease the carbs and the sugar, basically, right? And then gradually increase the healthy fats. 2 pieces. One, I was talking to someone about keto, and there's a lot of people out there who still haven't kind of heard this stuff, and they subscribe to the philosophy to avoid fat. I mean, just real quick, would you kind of bring people up to speed on whatever the new science is that's dispelling that?
Yeah, and it's a shame that that low fat craze is still going on, although it's not as popular as it was. And if you dig and if you want to get into the research of it, feel free to do so. I actually encourage you to do so. You could study. There's a good book called The Big Fat Surprise by Nina Teicholz, and she goes deep into the research. She's a journalist, and she goes and she digs deep. So if you want to study that, definitely get that book. If you look at just the human body, if you just study physiology, we're made up of 70 trillion cells. And if you want to get well, you have to heal the cell. You have to make sure your cells are functioning the way that it was designed to function. Because when you have cellular dysfunction, that's when you experience symptoms. And symptoms are not the problem. Being overweight is not the problem. Having fatigue, having sleep issues, having skin issues, having hormone issues, none of those are the problem. The problem is cell metabolism. The problem is within your cells. So if you could understand that, you could understand that nobody has a weight problem. They have a weight symptom. Okay. And we don't focus on the effect because that's just a never-ending game of chasing symptoms, which is allopathic medicine. So what I'm talking about here is that there's a cause and an effect. And the cause of the effect is your cells. When you have dysfunction, you're going to experience symptoms. So the reason I'm just giving you the importance of what the cell is because the cell membrane, which is a lipid bilayer around the cells, and it protects your cells and it helps your cells function the way it was designed to function. It's made up of protein, saturated fat, and cholesterol. So we're made up of cells.
The outer layer is literally made of those fats.
Exactly. the
Okay.
outer layer of your cells, which is the bodyguard, I call it, of your cells, and it protects your DNA. It tells your DNA to turn on bad genes or turn off bad genes, is made up of fat, saturated fat, cholesterol, and protein. There's no carbohydrates in there. So our cells love fat. In fact, burning fat is our birthright. If you were breastfed as a baby, breast milk has saturated fat, cholesterol, and protein because it helps the brain of the baby develop, which is very important. Ketones help that. So I would say that there's a lot of myths out there that have been passed around over and over and over and just accepted as truth. And the goal here is to just educate yourself and kind of unlearn and then relearn what is actually working for many people, and that is healthy fat.
Okay. So what are some tips or some actual foods, or basically, let's say we're trying to lower our carbs and our sugar and we're trying to raise the healthy fats. Do we cut out a few sugar snacks a day and replace it with an avocado, or what does that look like? What do we do plus don't do gradually?
Yeah, great question, Trevor. So if I was going to give you some practical steps here, I would say maybe download an app like MyFitnessPal or Carb Manager, or one of those apps that track your nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
and it'll spit out your total carbs. And I would just track it before you made any changes. So just do it tomorrow and see how many carbohydrates you're having on just what you're eating right now. So let's
Mm-hmm.
say it's 250 grams a day, which is pretty high. Then you make your new changes, and the goal is to eventually get to under 50 grams of carbs per day.
Under 50.
Under 50 should be getting you into ketosis, and just eating fat and protein with each meal and eating until full, and no snacking in between meals. So those are some general practical guidelines. So you want to bring your carbs below 50 for the day, eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, eating until full, having protein and fat with each meal, no snacking in between. You're going to get yourself into ketosis. So like you said, swap out some of the carbohydrates, even these healthy grains, swap them out with avocados, with pastured eggs, with nuts and seeds, with olive oil, MCT oil, coconut oil, some grass-fed raw cheese, and less of the carbohydrates, even the whole grains, because people will think, oh, I'm eating wheat bread, Ben, isn't that healthy? Well,
Mm-hmm.
here's an alarming stat that a lot of your listeners probably don't know. 2 slices of wheat bread is equal to a 12-ounce can of Coca-Cola when it comes to your blood sugar. Okay, it gives you the
Wow.
same blood sugar spike. So just
Wow.
because it says whole grain or whole wheat does not make it healthy. They're masters at this marketing game, and it's going to turn into sugar in your body. So I'm talking about healthy fat and less of the carbohydrates. That will do the trick.
Wow. So bread is literally breaking down into glucose the same way a soda is.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy. That really is. It's nuts. So what is a piece of bread? How many carbs is that?
Probably about 30 grams of carbs, 25, 30 grams is a standard piece of bread.
Okay. And pasta, obviously, same thing?
Well, it depends on how much you're eating. So if it's a cup of pasta, a cooked pasta, it's probably, I don't know, maybe like 50 grams of carbohydrate, 50 to 60, something like that.
Okay, so for a daily regimen, you're looking to stay under 2 pieces of bread, under a cup of pasta, under a little mini-sized bag of chips, like nothing. Like you avoid that stuff, very little of it.
Well, you want to get there. You want to get there eventually. So maybe if you're eating 250 grams of carbohydrates, you determine that. Maybe you start to go down to 150, right? So for 5 days, you go to 150 and then 100 and then 75. But eventually you want to get to 50. And then that's when you're in ketosis. And you're not going to stay in ketosis long term. It's just a powerful way, short term, to reset the hormone and the metabolism and help your cells function better.
Okay. All right. So that's a good way to kind of get there. All right. And then once you're there, you say it takes about 3 weeks of, let's say you gradually go down and you're not testing your blood, you're just going by how you feel. What's a good rule of thumb to days in a row where you're under 100 grams of carbs or under 50 grams of carbs? What's a good rule of thumb of time it takes to get to ketosis? Is that 3 weeks, like you said?
Yeah, I would say if you're 3 weeks into it, definitely drop it down to below 50 or below, and you're ready for it. And that's kind of the way I teach it. And I have a keto kickstart guide. I teach it in that structure. So go, if you're feeling good and you're getting results, then drop it some more and then continue doing it. But you should get there within 3 weeks. Absolutely.
Okay. And then when you say you don't stay there for very long, or you can get out of it and flex back and forth, what does that look like? Do you stay in ketosis for a week and then start eating maybe 100 carbs a day, or what's your basic philosophy there?
If not a week, it's a much longer than that. It depends also on the person. If that person is insulin resistant, I'm going to keep them in there for months, 3, 5 months, maybe. If they're healthy and they just wanted to experience ketosis because they want to get the cognitive benefits of it and other benefits of it, then maybe 30 days, 60 days, 3 months max, and then you can start flexing. Like you said, I call it keto flexing. So I have a 4-pillar approach, and it's a general approach, right? I just develop a guide for the general population, but understand that keto is very custom to the person, but it's impossible to create a custom guide for every single person. So I developed the general guide. So this general guide has a 4-pillar approach. The first pillar is the adapt pillar. So you get fat adapted, you get into ketosis, you start producing ketones. Then we go into the fast pillar, which is about intermittent fasting. And we can talk more about that. And then you pair intermittent fasting with the keto diet. After you do that, which is now you're 2 months in, you're 60 days in, then you go into the next pillar, which is the phase pillar. The phase pillar, you go really strict into ketosis. You bring your carbs to 10 per day, and then you gradually increase it. Now you're forcing your cells to choose fat for fuel. After this point, you've done the work, you've earned the badge to start flexing and having your high carb, healthy high carb days. And that's the general guideline. So it is adapt, fast, phase, and then flex. And that's the 4-pillar approach.
Okay. So if you phase for a little while, then you can almost flex out of it for a day or two and then almost get back into it even a couple days later.
Yeah, exactly. So if you do it the right way, that's exactly what should happen. So let's say, like I'll give you an example for myself. I put in the work. I've built up this metabolic machinery. So Sundays, I usually go feast mode. I eat a lot of healthy carbs. I'm intentionally getting out of ketosis. And I got to have 300 grams of carbohydrates, Trevor, on Sunday. And then Monday afternoon, test my ketones, and I'm right back in, dude. 24 hours because I put in the work. And that's what we want. That is metabolic flexibility.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about willpower to get that machinery earning your stripes, so to speak, that 30 days in there, 60 days in there, 90 days in there. Let's say someone's feeling, a little fatigued, they're not getting sleep, their willpower's down. What are some tips to avoid that comfort stress eating that so many people do, including myself?
Yeah, sleep, you said it. Sleep is going to be important because if your sleep is crappy, you're not going to succeed with your keto diet. Your willpower reserves, I look at willpower as a battery that's charged up every time you get good sleep. You wake up in the morning, it's supercharged. If you get crappy sleep, you're probably running at 50%, 25%. Your blood sugar levels are higher, and it's going to make it easier to break your new keto diet. So you got to focus on quality sleep. Sleep is so important. I talked about it in Orlando during the mastermind we were at. It's one of those pillars. So you got to get better sleep, and I could share about ways on how to get better sleep. And you got to also master your stress, because let's say you do get good sleep and you're at 100% or you're close to it, and then the day starts and you're just stressed out all day long. You're getting punched in the face all day long, and then it's 5 p.m. and your reserves are just depleted. So you got to find ways in your day to replenish those willpower reserves. Maybe it is just disconnecting from all social media and going for a 15-minute walk. Maybe it's taking a 20-minute nap. Maybe it's doing some meditation. Find ways to replenish your reserves so you have it high and you're able to continue with your diet. Okay.
And will that help get to sleep better if someone's having a tough time getting to sleep?
Will what help?
All those tips throughout the day.
Absolutely. Yeah. Meditation, going for a walk. Absolutely. Because it's a vicious cycle. So when you're stressed out, it affects your sleep. And
Mm-hmm.
then when you get poor sleep, it makes you even more stressed out. And like you said, it's a vicious cycle. So yeah, mastering your stress. So notice I'm not saying managing. Mastering your stress will help you get better sleep so you can master your stress. So it's also a healthy cycle if you can follow it that way as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just personally, I've been dealing with the sleep thing for a couple of months now. I've got two little kids. I had one in the hospital all weekend. He's fine now, but, just staying up all night, and it just becomes this routine where you finally get a few minutes to breathe, or I finally get a few minutes to relax, say 9, 10, 11. I start getting on my computer, getting on my phone, watching YouTube. Next thing I know, it's hard to fall asleep. It's 1:30, 2 o'clock. What are some ways, I mean, just selfishly, what are some ways, because I know I'm not the only one on that same habit. I've heard you talk about needing to get to sleep before 10 o'clock. What would be some ways to kind of reset that bad habit of staying up too late and getting to sleep early and getting quality sleep?
Yeah. If you have, let's say you have the habit of going to bed at 12 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say you're falling asleep at 12:30, but you're going to bed at 12, then I would say start with 30 minutes earlier. Start chipping away at that. So instead of 12, 11:30, and cut off your technology at a certain time as well. Detach from social media, because when you start stimulating your heart rate, when your heart rate increases because you're watching something exciting or you're just on social media or on YouTube, then it's harder to fall asleep because you need a resting heart rate of 60 beats per minute or less to go unconscious, to fall asleep.
Yeah.
So if you're stimulating yourself, you're raising cortisol, and whenever cortisol is up, cortisol is your stress hormone, fight or flight hormone. It gives you energy. You don't want that activated at night, because when cortisol is up, it has an inverted relationship with melatonin. Melatonin is what you want activated at night. Melatonin is your sleep hormone. I call it the vampire hormone because it comes out overnight. It's antioxidant, it's cancer fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And when cortisol is starting to increase, melatonin is decreasing.
Mm-hmm.
So avoid stimulation. You could have something like bedtime tea from Yogi. Yogi makes a good bedtime tea. You could find Yogi pretty much everywhere. You could do something like banana tea. Banana tea is a simple way. I call it nature's NyQuil. I wrote about it in my book, The Power of Sleep, where you
Mm-hmm.
just grab a whole banana, make sure it's organic. You leave the peel on of that banana. You just cut off the ends, and you put that banana with the peel on into a pot and let it boil with water for about 5 minutes. And what happens is the peel of that banana has more of these micronutrients, the potassium, the magnesium, and many other nutrients. It has more than the actual banana itself. And
Mm-hmm.
as it boils, all that starts to seep into the water. So after
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes, you just pour that water into a cup and you got yourself banana tea. You just sip on that, and you maybe want to put a chamomile bag of a bag of chamomile tea in there, and it's going to relax you. So doing little tips like that, keeping your bedroom cold and dark also helps. Taking a warm shower. There's a lot of tactics there, but find what works best for you. And if you could, like you mentioned, get to bed by 10 p.m.,
Mm-hmm.
ideally that's the best. That's the best time to do it.
I know the dark thing is legit because this morning my 3-year-old daughter was sleeping in my room. She woke up around like 6:30 a.m. and she said, "Daddy, you can shut the light off." And it was like just some light coming through the top of the blinds, and it bothered her. And she's just a little kid, so
Yeah.
obviously she wanted to sleep, and it was in the way if there's too many lights. So go real quick on the social media thing. Like, so you're saying it's not good to go read about politics and spike our cortisol at night. I wonder how many people do that, like going to sleep worrying about things that we can't control.
Yeah.
And then we just have this stressful mindset. And then, like you said, you're out of your relaxation mode and your cortisol's up.
Yeah, there's two parts during the day that you want to protect your space. Be really diligent. That's before going to bed.
Mm-hmm.
So 30 to 60 minutes before going to bed and 30 to 60 minutes after waking up. That's when your subconscious mind is very impressionable. So whatever you feed it, whatever it's going to accept it. So if you're feeding it politics, you're reading about the president, you're reading about something negative, which a lot of the social media is,
Mhm.
You may not realize it, but you're feeding your subconscious mind negativity. And then all of
Mhm.
a sudden you're going to be gossiping. You're going to be feeding, you're going to be negative. You're going to be thinking negative thoughts. And then the law of the universe is whatever you feed energy to, you get more of. So you're just going to get more, and it's a vicious cycle. So you definitely want to be diligent with protecting your nighttime space and your morning time space by turning off social media. And look, I love social media. I use it as a
Mhm.
tool, but
Mhm.
I don't use it at night. You know, you're not going to catch me on my phone looking at social media before bed. I've been there and I saw what it did for my days. And now I make it a rule that I turn off my phone and I put it on airplane mode, and I have a book, which that's another tip for you. Read a book, read a book where I wear blue light blocking glasses to filter out the light, and I'm reading a book. And next thing you know, I'm ready to go to bed. My circadian rhythm is functioning at the level I want it to function. And it knows that it's time for bed.
Right. It's probably better for your, even like reading, it's not totally easy. It's like, it's a little hard. Not that it's hard to read, but I mean, you're physically doing something. It's intelligently demanding. So it's probably helpful to give your mind that little activity, and then your mind's like, oh, I'm just tired. And that helps you go to sleep, would you say?
Yeah, it also depends on what you're reading. So if I'm reading like a very technical health book, it probably wouldn't be good to read that before bed. I usually read self-development before bed. Like right now, I'm rereading the Magic of Thinking Big,
Okay.
and so I'm feeding my mind with some positive stuff, right? So that's not a very difficult book to read. So I think it depends. If you're reading something complicated, yeah, it might be like doing the opposite effect. So read something that's
Right.
very easy to comprehend and understand. And I noticed like as my eyes go, and I'm starting to feel tired, and then I go to bed.
Cool. So tell me about the Magic of Thinking Big. I've never read that one.
That book is one of the all-time greats. I've probably read or listened to over 1,000 books in my life. And that I would put that book in the top 20, top
Okay.
25 probably. It's a classic from I don't know where it's from, but it's written back in the day because you could just tell from the author. Dr. David Schwartz is the author.
Mm-hmm.
If that book was given to every student in high school, it
Mm-hmm.
would probably 10x their results in life, honestly.
Yeah.
My kid is going to, your kids should read that book, by the way. My kid is going to read that book because it teaches you how to conquer fear. The chapter on fear, action cures fear, and
Yeah.
thinking about fear makes it grow.
Mm-hmm.
So it talks all about fear. It talks how you want to be at the front of, if you're attending an event, sit at the front, stand out. Don't let other people's comments affect you. Have an awesome attitude, and how attitude and attitude and enthusiasm is more important than intelligence. And I completely agree. So it's a really great book, just giving you the golden rules of a successful life. And I love that book. And I'm probably reading it right now for the 4th or 5th time. Highly recommend it.
So how do you guard yourself from negativity and stay so focused and positive?
It started with cutting people out of my life who were not positive. I call them crabs in a bucket. So when you put crabs in a bucket, you don't have to put a lid on that bucket, because if any crab tries to escape, all the other crabs just drag it back down.
Yeah.
And we have people in our lives that are crabs in the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
So determine, and I think Grant Cardone talked about this in Be Obsessed or Be Average, his book. Take a piece of paper, write down, I'll put it in a line down the middle. On the left side, write down all the people in your life who are supporting you, who are encouraging you, who are helping you accomplish your goals.
Mm-hmm.
And on the right, write down all the people who are not doing that. And you got yourself a list there of people who you should surround yourself with, at least most of the time, on the left, and then people you should either eliminate or just hang out with them less. So you do that first and foremost, as hard as it is, and it was difficult for me to do that. And then you start just feeding the beast, right? You keep your goals in front of you. You start writing down your goals at night, which I do every night before bed. In the morning when I wake up, I have a goal card that I carry with me. So I'm feeding the beast. I'm keeping my why in front of me. And I also catch myself. Something that I do is whenever I catch myself complaining, which is rare,
Mm-hmm.
I catch myself and I stop and I choose a better thought. So having the awareness, and if you could maybe challenge yourself to go 7 days without complaining. I challenge everybody listening to this or watching this, go 7 days without complaining. And when I say that, I'm not just talking about verbally complaining. I'm talking about in your head, right? Somebody cuts you off in traffic. What an asshole. Or I don't know, you see something you don't like and you complain in your head, like catch yourself. And if you go 7 days without doing it, that's pretty damn good. So those are just a few ways I do it, Trevor.
What are some good ways to change your thinking from that asshole to something more easygoing?
Yeah, great question. So you're never going to find me with road rage. I'm really even keel. I've done a lot of work on myself. So if somebody cuts me off, I change my story. So you could create the story that that person's an asshole. He cut me off. He almost caused me to get into an accident and I'm pissed off. You could create that story. Or you could create the story that, man, that guy, he must have an emergency. He must be driving to somebody who's sick in the hospital, or he must have had a really bad day, a shitty day. So it's the story you create. And that's our greatest power, right? The power to choose. So create a better story is what I would say.
Yeah, because we've all been that asshole before too, right?
Exactly.
Nobody's exempt. We've all had our moments where we had to do what we had to do, and we can justify it for ourselves pretty easily, but we don't let other people have that same grace very often.
Exactly, Trevor. Yeah, so that's the awareness right there. So you just nailed it.
Cool. So how long would you say you've been on that path and pushing forward with this positivity and health and when did you get into this?
It was in 2008 going to 2009 when I woke up. I was obese back then. I was 80 pounds heavier than I am today. And I was just lost in life. I was working at a packing and shipping store. Ex-girlfriend broke up with me, depressed, suicidal thoughts. I tell people I was tiptoeing my way through life, hoping to make it safely to death, right? So if my heart would have stopped beating back then, Trevor, it would have just been a mere formality because I was not alive in the sense of I was not living a life on purpose with my purpose. So I had to hit rock bottom in order to wake up, to just use rock bottom as a springboard to launch from. And it started with books. If you're watching this video right now, you see all these books behind me. It started with authors like this guy right here, which I'm rereading his book, Wayne Dyer, Excuses Be Gone, right? He helped me realize that I am responsible. It's not my genetics. It's not my enabling family members, not my friends, not the president. I am responsible for all the results I had been getting in my life. But up until that point, I didn't have that awareness. I was blaming other people. And the only person that I should have been blaming was myself. And he helped me understand that so that I took full responsibility, dude. You fast forward 9 months from that, I lost 80 pounds. I went from 34% body fat, 6% body fat, size 38 waist to size 30 waist. And I carved out a mental six-pack. And I've been working on both physical and mental health ever since. And that was about 11 years ago now.
Was the ex-girlfriend breaking up with you the catalyst, or was there more to it?
Yeah, definitely was the catalyst. It was a motivation to get healthy, to show her, right? Look at Ben now, he has six-pack abs, and I use that motivation. But motivation doesn't really last. It's really inspiration and purpose and my why that really was everlasting. So that was the catalyst for sure. But leading up until that point, I was playing video games. I was addicted to drugs. I was drinking a lot of alcohol, and that was just like the tip of the iceberg, if you will, or whatever you want to call it, that really forced me, because it put me in rock bottom. So it forced me to climb out of that space and land in the zip code of greatness.
So what was the focus? Was it health, or was it mindset? Was it both? What was the driving actions that really helped you follow and find a path that you were able to sustain?
It was health for sure. I realized that everything I want to do, whether, I didn't know what I wanted to do in my life in terms of businesses and relationships, but in order to accomplish all that, I had to be healthy, because I felt like I was 80 years old. My back was going out on me every single day. I had to wear a knee brace, 2 knee braces around my knees just to walk around the mall for more than an hour, because I was in so much pain. I was so inflamed.
Wow.
So I knew that, and I was 24 years old, dude. I knew that I had to make a change with my health. That's where I started, because once you upgrade your health, by default, every other area in your life upgrades with it.
Right.
your relationships, your finances, your business, everything. And it's the opposite is true. When your health declines, everything around you starts to decline as well. So your health is your true wealth. It pays the best dividends. It gives you the best returns. And I'm telling you, if you're unhealthy right now, if you're listening to this, you're being very selfish, because not only are you suffering, your family suffers because they don't get your greatest version. They don't get the truest version. How could they get your best personality if you're unhealthy?
Mm-hmm.
So you focus on your health like I did, and you're going to notice everything in your life will improve as a result of it.
Okay. I mean, that's awesome. I'm just curious, what was up with your knees? What was that from?
I played a lot of basketball,
Mm-hmm.
and it was the excess weight and the inflammation. So the stats are, if I remember correctly, every additional pound, no, every extra 4 pounds of body weight you're carrying is equivalent to 10 pounds of pressure on your knees.
Mm-hmm.
So if I had an additional 4 pounds of weight, it was 10 pounds of pressure, but I had 80 pounds additional weight. So it was all that weight, all that inflammation, and that resulted in me not being able to walk more than an hour without excruciating pain behind my knee and on my kneecap. And I had to wear knee braces just to go into the mall and walk around for a little bit. And it was very bad to live that. I don't wear knee braces now, and I have no knee pain, and my back pain is gone as well. But it shows inflammation and just being overweight is very detrimental to your joints.
So like you were saying, the symptom is not the issue. And basically, you didn't do anything specific to your knee. You didn't go to a knee doctor and get knee surgery. You literally just got healthy, started eating better, took the weight off, and then the knees felt better. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. I didn't get surgery. I didn't do anything to treat the knees. I focused on the cause,
Mm-hmm.
which was being unhealthy, and I got healthy. And then as a side effect was that my knees got better, and a side effect was that the weight came off. I didn't focus on weight loss. I focused on health.
And so I'm taking it like, because it had such a dramatic effect on you personally, that's what, when did you say, like, I want to be in the health field and I want to help other people? Is that basically what happened?
Yeah, that's when I decided that I left my job and I became a personal trainer. And I started, I was a mobile personal trainer driving to clients, and I put ads on Craigslist, and that's where it started. Then I opened up a CrossFit gym and became a health coach and an author. But that's where it all started. My transformation, because I had so many people asking me to help them. Like, how did you do it? They were making fun of me, right? When I was going through it, when I was
Sure.
disciplined, and they were like, oh, why aren't you drinking a beer, you wussy? They were making fun of me. And then I went through the transformation, and I'm like, oh, could you help me? So I was like, man, I want to help people because I know how to do it. And that's
Yeah.
what started.
Okay. How do you feel about beer?
How do I feel about beer?
Mm-hmm.
I don't drink alcohol. Haven't had alcohol in over 2 years, but I do have clients who it's part of a business, sometimes part of social gatherings. So they ask me, if I were going to drink, what would be the best option out of my choices? And I tell them that to stay away from beer. Beer is one of the worst ones. To stay away from wine. Wine and beer are probably the worst, with the exception of one company that has wine that they do it right. They're called dry farm wines, and they're biodynamic wine, and they're really high quality organic wine. So that's the exception. Other than that, most wine and all beer, I tell my clients to avoid. Instead, have some whiskey, some vodka. I like a Moscow Mule because it has some digestive bitters in it. So those would be the go-to choices, and I would stay away from the wine and the beer.
The health coach says drink whiskey, y'all.
That was my go-to choice before I stopped drinking.
If I'm going to drink, I like a good whiskey too. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, the beer and the wine, is it like the sulfates in the wine, or what's the,
Yeah. Great question. So the reason for the wine, the reason I don't like wine is because most wine loaded with pesticides, loaded with toxins. The average California wine has
Mhm.
over 64 herbicides and pesticides in it. 64, dude. So
Mhm.
that's why. And then for beer is estrogenic. So especially for males, when it increases your estrogen, beer
Yeah.
does, you know what goes down? Your testosterone, because your
Mm.
free testosterone is now absorbed by your estrogen. So that's a problem for men. And then for women, if you have excess estrogen, if you're in estrogen dominance, that could lead to an increase in breast cancer. So it's bad news for both male and women. And those are the reasons why I avoid it.
So when you're doing this, obviously some of your friends are going to say you're a buzzkill, you're, this, that, and the other, you're no fun, the peer pressure stuff. How do you deal with that and keep on your path? Would you say that you find new friends? Are you aggressive? Do you handle it? How do you handle that?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it was tough when I was going through my transformation. I didn't know how to handle it. I would get upset about it, and I took it personal. But so there's the way I am now versus before. Now I see that you got to enjoy yourself as well. You don't want to live longer, but then have a lower quality of life, right? And be so freaking dogmatic and strict. You want to live awesome, like Mark Sisson says. You want to have a good life. Yeah. So I have flexibility and I enjoy myself, and I'm not strict all the time. Yeah. You want to have that flexibility. You want to enjoy yourself. I personally don't need alcohol to have a good time. Yeah. I have a good time regardless. So your question was, how do you handle it if somebody's saying, "Oh, you're not eating gluten," or "You're not"? I just say, hey, like, these are my goals. The reason I don't have these things is because I know that this is what it does to me. And I don't judge people. Like, you go for it, you have it, and I enjoy myself. So just do you. Nobody else is living your life. Nobody's living Trevor's life but Trevor. Nobody's living Ben's life but Ben. And I read a book a few years ago called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. Mm-hmm. And this was a hospice nurse in Australia who worked with dying people on their hospital bed. Are you familiar with this book?
I've heard. I don't remember what they are, but I remember a couple points from it. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah. So she was working with these dying patients in a hospice in Australia, and she would interview them and ask them, "What is your biggest regret, in your entire life?" And she kind of documented that. She did document this for several years, and she compiled a whole list, and she wrote a book on the top 5 regrets of these dying people. The number 1 regret was living a life not true to themselves, but living a life of what others expected them to be. Right? So just knowing that, just live a life true to yourself, and it doesn't matter what other people think of you. The only thing that matters is what you think as a result
of what they think.
Yeah, no, I worded that wrong. It doesn't matter what people say to you. The only thing that matters is what you think after they say it. Right? Gotcha. So that's the only thing that matters. Live a life true to yourself.
You can accept what they say, or you can instantly say, that doesn't really apply to me. I'm good.
Exactly, dude. If you're so convicted in who you are, then it'll be like them running up to you saying, "Oh, Trevor, dude, you got crazy blue hair, man. You look stupid." You're going to look at them like, "Dude, I don't have blue hair. What's wrong with you?" Right? It's going to deflect off of you like water off a fish. So you got to have conviction, and that comes from integrity. If you have integrity, all that stuff doesn't matter.
Well, I was like a 16-year-old raver, and I had blue hair, so I'm fine with that.
Were you really?
Oh, literally. Yeah.
I gotta see a photo.
Old school, man, for sure. Nice. So I want to respect your time. I know you got some next appointments. I'd like to ask you this question. If you could give one piece of advice, and that's all you got to give, and I was going to put it in a book and say, this is Ben Azadi's one quote, one piece of advice, what would yours be?
Yeah, great question. It would be that everything you want in life, health, finances, relationships, love, whatever it is, whatever your definition of success is, all of that external stuff starts internally. If you could become really good at mastering your thoughts and choosing better thoughts and developing the inside of you, then everything on the outside will take care of itself. Mm-hmm. Because there's nothing on the outside of us that's ever going to help us or hurt us. It's what's on the inside that counts. So continuously do work on yourself on the inside, and you're going to notice everything on the outside is just going to manifest into your wildest dreams. And that's what I would say.
That's awesome. And I could tell you felt it because by the time you were done, your arms were spread out like you were flying. That's awesome. So I just want to thank you for being the first guest ever on Trevolution podcast, Mr. Ben Azadi. Any final words, places people can find you, parting shots?
Yeah, well, thank you I'm honored to be the first guest. For those of you listening to this episode or watching this on YouTube, it makes a big difference for podcast creators like Trevor to get reviews and ratings. So if you could leave Trevor a rating and a review on iTunes, it takes 30 seconds. It makes a big difference. And he's committed to bringing a powerful guest on his show. Mm-hmm. So leave a rating and review for Trevor. I want to just first say that. And then I also have a podcast called the Keto Camp Podcast. So if you want to learn more about keto, intermittent fasting, longevity, and performance, that's what the podcast is all about. So go to ketocamppodcast.com. Remember, it's camp with the K. So go ahead, and it's available on all podcast platforms. And if you want to get my Keto Kickstart Guide, which is a free 12-page ebook, go to www.ketokickstartguide.com. And I'm grateful that you chose to listen to this entire episode. So thank you, listeners and viewers, and thank you, Trevor.
Awesome. Mr. Ben Azadi, thank you so much for sharing everything. It's been a pleasure meeting you. It's been great that, to just receive a lot of the warm, helpful, positive spirit and just all the enlightenment that you have that you're sharing with the world. I just want to say thank you for me and for anyone else who listens to this. So we really appreciate you.
I appreciate you, Trevor. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day, man. See ya.
You too.